Billerica Public Library's Book Buzz, February publications. Hi, and welcome to Book Buzz. My name is Marion, and I'm the Public Service Librarian at Billerica Public Library. I hope that you will enjoy hearing about some of the February releases that Billerica Public Library and Merrimack Valley Consortium own. Our first genre is contemporary fiction. Milk-Fed by Melissa Broda. Rachel is 24, a lapsed Jew who has made calorie restriction her religion. By day, she maintains an illusion of control by the way of obsessive food rituals while working as an underling at a Los Angeles talent management agency. At night, she pedals nowhere on an elliptical machine. Rachel is content to carry on subsisting until a therapist encouraged her to take a 90-day communication detox from her mother, who raised her in the tradition of calorie counting. Early in the detox, Rachel meets Miriam, a young Orthodox Jewish woman who works at her favorite frozen yogurt shop and is intent upon feeding her. Rachel is suddenly and powerfully entranced by Miriam, by her Sundays in her body, her faith in her family, and as the two grow closer, Rachel embarks on a journey marked by mirrors, mysticism, mothers, milk, and honey. Let's Get Back to the Party by Zach Salah. It is 2015, weeks after the Supreme Court marriage equality ruling, and all Sebastian Moat wants to do is to settle down. A high school art history teacher, newly single and depressingly lonely, he envies his queer students their freedom to live openly the youth he lost to fear and shame. When he runs into his childhood friend Oscar at a wedding in Washington, D.C., he can't help but see it as a second chance. Now 35, the men haven't seen each other in more than a decade, but Oscar has no interest in their shared history, nor in the sense of belonging Sebastian craves. Instead, he's outraged by what he sees as the death of gay culture. Bars overrun with bachelorette parties, friends coupling off and having babies. For Oscar, conformity isn't peace, it's surrender. While Oscar and Sebastian struggle to find their place in a rapidly changing world, each is drawn into a cross generational friendship that treads the line between envy and obsession. Sebastian with one of his students, and Oscar with an older icon of the AIDS era. And as they collide again and again, both men must reckon not with just one another, but with themselves. The Kindest Lie by Nancy Johnson. It's 2008, and the inauguration of President Barack Obama ushers in a new kind of hope. In Chicago, Ruth Tuttle, an Ivy League educated Black engineer, is married to a kind and successful man. He's eager to start a family, but Ruth is uncertain. She has never gotten over the baby she gave birth to and was forced to leave behind when she was a teenager. She had promised her family she'd never look back, but Ruth knows that to move forward, she must make peace with the past. Returning home, Ruth discovers the Indiana factory town of her youth is plagued by unemployment, racism, and despair. And as she begins digging into the past, she unexpectedly befriends Midnight, a young white boy who is also adrift and looking for connections. Just as Ruth is about to uncover a burning secret her family desperately wants to keep hidden, a traumatic incident strains the town's already searing racial tensions, sending Ruth and Midnight on a collision course that could upend both their lives. Our second genre is mystery and suspense. The Survivors by Jane Harper. Karen Elliott's life changed forever on a day a reckless mistake led to devastating consequences. The guilt that still haunts him resurfaces during a visit with his young family to the small coastal community he once called home. Kieran's parents are struggling in a town where fortunes are forged by the sea. Between them all is his absent brother Finn. When a body is discovered on the beach, long held secrets threaten to emerge. A sunken wreck, a missing girl, and questions that have never, ever washed away. The Unwilling by John Hart. Gibby's older brothers have already been to war. One died there. The other came back misunderstood, and Hart, a decorated killer, now freshly released from a 3-year stint in prison. Jason won't speak of the war or his time behind bars, but he wants a relationship with the younger brother he hasn't known for years. Determined to make that connection, he coaxes Gibby into a day at the lake. Long hours of sunshine, whiskey, and older women. But the day turns ugly when the four encounter a prison transfer bus on a stretchy of empty road. Beautiful but drunk, one of the women taunts the prisoners, leading to a riot on the bus. The woman finds it funny in the moment, but is savagely murdered soon after. Given his violent history, suspicion turns first to Jason, but when a second woman is kidnapped, the police suspect Gibby too. Determined to prove Jason innocent, Gibby must avoid the cops and dive deep into his brother's hidden life, a dark world of heroin, guns, and outlaw motorcycle gangs. Lola on Fire by Rio Yaws. Brody Alice is short on luck and even shorter on cash to buy the medication his sister Molly needs. Desperate, he robs a convenience store, but on the way out, he bumps into a young woman and loses his wallet. Just when he expects the cops to arrive, the phone rings. It's Blair Mayo, the woman he bumped into, and she's got the missing billfold. Brody will get it back, but only if he does her a favor, steal her late mother's diamonds from her wicked stepmom. But when he gets to the house, he finds a gruesome crime scene and a security camera. Brody knows he's been framed. Back home, the terrified young man gets a call. The police won't get the incriminating video footage, Blair says. Instead, her daddy, the notorious mobster Jimmy Latzo, will exact his kind of revenge. Hitting the road to save their lives, Brody and Molly realize that they've become pawns in a mysterious game, one that involves a notorious enforcer named Lola Bear, who brutally crossed paths with Jimmy 26 years before, a ghost from the past who is intimately connected to their lives. Dark Horses by Susan Melick. 15-year-old equestrian prodigy Roan Montgomery has only ever known two worlds, inside the riding arena and outside of it. Both, for as long as she can remember, has been ruled by her father, who demands strict obedience in all areas of her life. The what power dynamic of coach and rider extends far beyond the stables, and Roan's relationship with her father has long been inappropriate. She has been able to close off that dark aspect of her life, ruthlessly focusing on her ambitions as a rider heading for the Olympics, just as her father had done. However, her developing relationship with Will Howard, a boy of her own age, broadens the scope of her vision. Flowers of Darkness by Tatiana de Rosny. Author Calissa Caspert is struggling to write her next book. She just snagged a brand new artist residency in an ultra modern apartment with a view of all of Paris, a dream for any novelist in search of tranquility. But since moving in, she's had a feeling of being watched. Is there a reason to be paranoid? Or is her distraction and discomfort the result of her husband's recent shocking betrayal? Or is it that her beloved Paris lies altered outside her windows, a city that will never quite be the same, a city with a scar at its center? Stuck inside in the midst of a sweltering heat wave, Calissa enlists her beloved granddaughter in her investigation of the mysterious high-tech building, even as she finds herself drawn back into the orbit of her first husband, who is still the one who knows her most intimately, who shares the past grief that she has never let go. Never Far Away by Michael Kota. Nina Morgan's bloodstained car was found a decade ago on a lonely Florida road. Forensic evidence suggested she'd been murdered. Although her body was never found, her disappearance left her infant children to the care of their father. Once a pilot mother wife and a witness to a gruesome crime, Nina had to flee her old life to save her family. She reinvented herself as Leah Trenton, a guide in the Allagash wilderness in northern Maine. She never expected to see her children again, but now tragedy has returned them to her. Only they have no idea that she's their mother. and delivered all of them back into danger. Aunt Leah will need some help, and an old ally has suggested a young hitman named Dak Blackwell. The Downstairs Neighbor by Helen Cooper. From her downstairs apartment in suburban London, Emma has often overheard the everyday life of the seemingly perfect family upstairs, Steph, Paul, and teenage daughter Freya, but has never got to know them until one day she hears something that seizes her attention. Freya has vanished, and the police are questioning Steph and Paul about their life. Do either of you have any enemies? Anyone who might harm or threaten you? The effects of Freya's disappearance ripple outward, affecting not just the parents, but everyone who lives in the building, including Emma and the local driving instructor, Chris, who was the last person to see the teenager before she went missing. Each character's life is thrown into sharp focus as devastating mistakes and long held secrets are picked apart and other crimes come to light, including a child gone missing 25 years earlier and a shocking murder that make clear that past never stays where we leave it and that homes can be built on a foundation of lies. Our third genre is science fiction. Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. Prince Cam, a famously disappointing minor royal and the Emperor's least favorite grandchild, has been called upon to be useful for once. He's commanded to fulfill an obligation of marriage to the representative of the Empire's newest and most rebellious vessel planet. His future husband, Court Janet, is a widower and a murder suspect. Neither wants to be wed, but with a conspiracy unfolding around them and the fate of the empire at stake, they will have to navigate the thorns and barbs of court intrigue, the machineries of war, and the long shadows of Janet's past. And they'll have to do it together. So begins a legendary love story amid the stars. The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. I'm embarrassed still by how long it took me to notice. Everything was right there in the open, right there in front of me, but it still took me so long to see the person I had married. It took me so long to hate him. Martine is a genetically cloned replica made from Evelyn Caldwell's award-winning research. She's patient and gentle and obedient. She's everything Evelyn swore she'd never be. And she's having an affair with Evelyn's husband. Now the cheating bastard is dead, and both Caldwell wives have a mess to clean up. Good thing Evelyn Caldwell is used to getting her hands dirty. Our fourth genre is fantasy. The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gorniak. Angabarda's story begins where most witches' tales ends, with a burning. A punishment from Odin for refusing to provide him with knowledge of the future. The fire leaves Angada injured, powerless, and she flees into the farthest reaches of a remote forest. There she is found by a man who reveals himself to be Loki, and her initial distrust of him transforms into a deep and abiding love. Their union produces three unusual children, each with a secret destiny, who Angbada is keen to raise at the edge of the world, safely hidden from Odin's all-seeing eye. But as Angbada slowly recovers her powers, she learns that her blissful life and possibly all of existence is in danger. With the help from a fierce huntress, Skadi, with whom she shares a growing bond, Angbada must choose whether she'll accept fate that she's foreseen for her beloved family or rise to remake their future. From the most ancient of tales, this novel forges a story of love, lost, and a hope for the modern age. Fireheart Tiger by Elite D. Bodad. Quiet, thoughtful Princess Than was sent away as a hostage to the powerful, faraway country of Epither as a child. Now she's returned to her mother's imperial court, haunted not only by memories of her first romance, but by worrying magical echoes of a fire that devastated Epitha's royal palace. Diane's new role as a diplomat places her once again in the path of her first love, the powerful and magnetic eldest of Epitha, who knows exactly what she wants romance from Thon and much more from Thon's home. Eldris won't take no for an answer on either front. But the fire that burned down one palace is tempting Thon with the possibility of making her own dangerous decisions. Can Than find the freedom to shape her country's fate and her own? Our fifth genre is historical fiction. Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. Texas, 1921. A time of abundance. The Great War is over. The bounty of the land is plentiful, and America is on the brink of a new and optimistic era. But for Elsa, deemed too old to marry in a time when marriage is a woman's only option, the future seems bleak until the night she meets Raph and decides to change the direction of her life. With her reputation in ruin, there is only one respectable choice marriage to a man she barely knows. By 1934, the world has changed. Millions are out of work, and drought has devastated the Great Plains. Farmers are fighting to keep their land and their livelihoods as crops fail and water dries up and earth cracks open. Dust storms roll relentlessly across the plains. Everything on the farm is dying, including Elsa's tenuous marriage. Each day is a desperate battle against nature and the fight to keep her children alive. In this uncertain and perilous time, Elsa, like so many of her neighbors, must make an agonizing choice. Fight for the land she loves or leave it behind and go west to California in search of a better life for her family. The Invisible Woman by Erica Roebuck. France, March 1944. Virginia Hall wasn't like the other young society women back home in Baltimore. She never wanted the balls or the silk gloves. Instead, she traded a safe life for adventure in Europe. And when her beloved second home is thrust into the dark days of war, she leaps in headfirst. Once she's recruited as an ally spy, subverting the Nazis becomes her calling. But even the most cunning agent can be bested, and in wartime, trusting the wrong person can prove fatal. Virginia is haunted every day by the betrayal that ravaged her first operation and will do everything in her power to avenge the brave people she lost. While her future is anything but certain, this time more than ever, Virginia knows that failure is not an option, especially when she discovers what in whom she's truly protecting. Our sixth genre is biographies. Between Two Kingdoms by Sulika Jakad. When Jakad finally walked out of the cancer ward after 3.5 years of chemo, a clinical trial, and a bone marrow transplant, she was, according to the doctors, cured. But as she would soon learn, a cure is not where the work of healing ends, it's where it begins. She spent the past 1,500 days in desperate pursuit of one goal to survive. And now that she's done so, she realized that she had no idea how to live. How would she re enter the world and live again? How could she reclaim what had been lost? She embarked with her new best friend Oscar, a scruffy terrier mutt, on a 100-day, 15,000-mile road trip across the country. She set out to meet some strangers who had written to her during her years in the hospital. A teenage girl in Florida also recovering from cancer. A teacher in California grieving the death of her son. A death row inmate in Texas who spent his own years confined to a room. What she learned on this trip is that the divide between sick as well as poorest, that the vast majority of us will travel back and forth between these realms throughout our lives. Never Enough by Mike Hayes. Mike Hayes has lived a lifetime of once in a lifetime experiences. He has been held at gunpoint, threatened with execution. He's jumped out of a building rigged to explode, helped amputate a teammate's leg, and made countless split second life and death decisions. He's written countless emails to his family telling them how much he loves them, just in case those were the last words of his they've ever read. Outside of sales, he's run meetings in the White House Situation Room, negotiated international arms treaties, and developed high impact corporate strategies. Over his many years of leadership, he's always strived to be better, to contribute more, and to put others first. That's what makes him an effective leader, and it's a quality that identified in all of the great leaders he's encountered. That continually striving to lift those around him has filled Mike's life with meaning and purpose, has made him secure in the knowledge that he brings his best to everything he does, and has made him someone others can rely on. Two Truths and a Lie by Ellen McGarren. In 1990, Ellen was a young reporter for the Miami Herald when she covered the execution of Jesse Tafuro, a man convicted of murdering two police officers. When it later emerged that Jesse may have been innocent, Ellen was appalled by her unquestioning acceptance of the state's version of events. The revelation propelled her into a new career as a private investigator. Decades later, Ellen finally decides to find out the truth of what really happened in Florida. Her investigation plunges her back into Miami of the 1960s and 70s, a dangerous world of nightclubs, speedboats, cartels, all awash in violence. She combs through stacks of court files and interviews everyone involved in the case. But even as Ellen circles closer to the truth, the story of guilt and innocence becomes more complex, and she gradually discovers that she hasn't been alone in her need for closure. Because whenever a human life is forcibly taken by bullet or by electric chair, the reckoning is long and difficult for all. Our last genre is nonfiction. The Genome Odyssey by Aaron A. Ashley. Dr. Ashley details the medicine behind genome sequencing with clarity and accessibility. More than that, with passion for his subject and compassion for his patients, he introduces readers to the dynamic group of researchers and doctor detectives who hunt for answers and to pioneering patients who open up their lives to the medical community during their search for a diagnosis and cures. He describes how he led the team that was first to analyze and interpret a complete human genome, how they broke genome speed records to diagnose and treat a newborn baby girl whose heart stopped 5 times on the first day of her life, and how they found a boy with tumors growing inside his heart and traced the cause to a missing piece of his genome. These patients inspired Dr. Ashley and his team as they worked to expand the boundaries of medical capabilities and to envision a future where genome sequencing is available for all, where medicine can be tailored to treat specific diseases and to decode pathogens like viruses at the genetic level, and where our medical system as we know it has been completely revolutionized. When Harry Met Minnie by Martha Techner. There's a special friendship among early morning dog walkers, gathering at dog runs in the park or strolling through farmers market at Union Square before the bustling crowd appears. Fellow pet owners become familiar, as do the personalities of their beloved animals. In this special space and time, a chance encounter with an old acquaintance changed Martha's world. As fate would have it, her friend knew someone who was dying of cancer from exposure to toxins after 9/11 and desperate to find a home for her dog, Harry. He was a bull terrier, the same breed as Martha's dear Minnie. Would Martha consider giving Harry a safe and loving new home? In short order, boy dog meets girl dog, the fairy tale part of this story. But there is so much more to this book. After Martha agrees to meet Harry and his owner Carol, what begins as a transaction involving a dog becomes a deep and meaningful friendship between two women with complicated loves and a love of bull terriers in common. Through the heartbreaking grief of Carol's illness, that bond that develops changed Martha's life, Carol's life, Minnie's life, and Harry's life, as it changed Carol's death as well. Made in China by Amelia Payne. In 2012, an Oregon mother named Julie Keith opened a package of Halloween decorations. The cheap foam headstones had been $5 at Kmart, too good of a deal to pass up. But when she opened the box, something shocking fell out, an SOS letter handwritten in broken English. Sir, if you occasionally buy this product, please kindly resend this letter to the World Human Rights Organization. Thousands of people here who are under the persecution of Chinese Communist Party government will thank you and remember you forever. The note's author, Sun Yi, was mild-mannered Chinese engineer turned political prisoner, forced into grueling labor for campaigning for the freedom to join a forbidden meditation movement. He was imprisoned alongside petty criminals, civil rights activists, and tens of thousands of others the Chinese government had decided to re-educate, carving foam gravestones and stitching clothing for more than 15 hours a day. Investigative journalist Amelia Pang pulls back the curtain on Sun's story and the stories of others like him. When she reveals the closely guarded network of forced labor camps that power the rapid pace of American consumerism, through the extensive interviews and firsthand reportage, Pang shows us the true cost of America's cheap goods and shares what is ultimately a call of action, urging others to ask more questions and demand more answers from the companies we patronize. 400 Souls by Ibram X. Kendi. The story begins in 1619, a year before the Mayflower, when the White Lion disgorges some 20 and odd Negroes onto the shores of Virginia, inaugurating the African presence in what would become the United States. It takes us to the present when African Americans, descendants of those White Lion and a thousand other routes to this country, continue a journey defined by inhuman oppression, visionary struggles, stunning achievements, and millions of ordinary lives passing through extraordinary history. How to Avoid Climate Disaster by Bill Gates. Bill has spent a decade investigating the causes and effects of climate change. With the help of experts in the fields of physics, chemistry, biology, engineering, political science, and finance, he is focused on what must be done in order to stop the planet's slide to certain environmental disaster. In this book, he not only explains why we need to work toward net zero emissions of greenhouse gases, but also details what we need to do to achieve this profoundly important goal. He gives us clear-eyed description of the challenges we face, drawing on his understanding of innovation and what it takes to get new ideas into the market. He describes the areas in which technology is already helping to reduce emissions, where and how the current technology can be made to function more effectively, where breakthrough technologies are needed, and who is working on these essential innovations. Finally, he lays out a concrete, practical plan for achieving the goal of zero emissions, suggesting not only policies that governments should adopt, but what we as individuals can do to keep our government, our employers, and outside ourselves accountable in this crucial enterprise.